The following is an exclusive presentation of Jesup Broadcasting, the sports leader in Southeast Georgia.
World famous. The world famous Butch and Bob Show.
And good morning, everyone. You're listening to the Big Dog, WIFO FM in Jesup, 105.5 on your FM dial. Butch Hubbard here with you, along with Bob Morgan. Yeah, Bob is in the studio somewhere around the station, but he'll be back on the air in just a few minutes here on 105.5 FM. World famous Butch and Bob Show brought to you by Mike Birch Ford in Blackshear, by the Wolf Animal Hospital on West Cherry Street in downtown Jesup, the Women's Health Center on Chariot Broad, and by Murphy Builder Supply. And we've got a special guest in this morning. Matter of fact, we've got two sets of guests in this morning. They're going to be talking about very important issues. In this morning, in the studio with us this morning is Joyce. Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning.
And we're just going to use first name because she's going to talk about domestic violence. She's written a couple of books. I'm going to hold them up to the camera here so folks can see it. If you're on bigdogcountry.com, and click on the B&B show and go to live show, you'll see the show right down the internet there. And also the show will be archived in bigdogcountry.com under archive shows, plus a big article right here where she spoke at an event in Savannah. So, Joyce, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You're doing good. And
Yes.
you're a resident of Wayne County, too, and you've got all these books you've published, and you speak everywhere on domestic violence. And I was, you'd called me a few weeks ago, and as I told you, we get requests all the time from different people. The more I've talked to you, and the more then we met, I couldn't wait to have you on the show because you're I wouldn't say an expert, but you're very knowledgeable in this area of domestic violence from a personal standpoint and from the fact that you've written a couple of books about it and you speak on a regular basis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you requested the time to be on the air this morning, and I asked you about that when we were talking on the phone, is what do you want to get across to our listeners out there? Why did you want to be on the Butch and Bob Show?
Well, I wanted to be on the show to bring more awareness to the devastation and brutality of domestic violence.
Okay.
I am a survivor of domestic violence.
Okay.
And I would like to talk about it and give some insight into what goes on in a domestic violence situation, such as mine.
All right. Now, the books that you've written here, you've used pen names, not your regular name, your pen names, because of it being a domestic violence situation. You've many situations, men and women, and sometimes men have to protect their identity. It's usually women, but the two books that you've written are Ripped to Shreds, and your pen name on this one is Ann Wilson. And then you've got the second book, which is a thick old thing here, From the Pen of a Ready Writer, and your pen name on here was Rebecca Gray Stone. How did you come up with these pen names?
Well, I just sat down one day, especially Ripped to Shreds, and I thought about Alice Wilson. I said, okay, that's an okay name for Ripped to Shreds. It's calmer. And From the Pen of a Ready Writer, really that came from the Bible, because I started reading the Bible at a very young age, and Ready Writer has been on my mind. So I just said, okay, and I used to write poems, so that's where I got the name Ready Writer from.
Okay. Did you write this book first, Ready Writer?
Yes, I started at 9 years old. Okay.
Now, this is a book full of quotes and poems, right?
Right.
Okay. It's just filled with all... if a person purchased this book, what will they get out of this book from the Ready Writer?
They will find that most everything in that book, From the Pen of a Ready Writer, composed of life. Most everything about life is in that book.
So it's a book of poems about life, different aspects of life and people.
Right. It's divided into 4 areas: praise and worship, Bible stories, family relations, and victims and survivors.
Okay. And many of the quotes come from every one I've seen so far comes from the Bible. Do they come from anywhere else other than the Bible?
most of the quotes come from the Bible, and I use the Bible because it supports what I'm saying.
Okay.
It supports my writing.
Okay. In your other book here called Ripped to Shreds, a true story of domestic abuse in a small town, and your pen name on this is Ann Wilson. Tell us how this book came about.
Well, I was shot 3 times.
Shot 3 times.
Yes.
Okay.
With a .357 Magnum.
Man, you must have. That's amazing. To be shot 3 times with a .357 Magnum. Was this part of your domestic violence situation?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And so from that, you've got the inspiration to write this book to try to help people who may be in the same situation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And so how did you survive being shot 3 times with a .357 Magnum with your partner? From your partner? Yeah.
Well, as I look back, I have to really give the glory and honor to God, because during the midst of him shooting me 3 times with a .357 Magnum, it just appeared that God's presence was there. It was so much power around me. And as he was shooting me, he reminded me, didn't I tell you I was going to kill you? And he fired.
So in this situation, with your situation, the domestic violence, because they're all different, but from what I've seen from here and talking to different agencies that have been here and talk about that, there is a pattern leading up to, I won't say a final event, but an event that really changes things like yours.
Well, my ex-husband masked those signs of domestic violence quite well.
He did mask them. You
Yes,
did not
he did.
see this coming?
No, I did not.
So this is a situation where the person was, okay. Now, was kind of keeping it in, and then suddenly it just exploded, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't something leading up to it. It's not something you talk to your friends and relatives. You know, I've got a very, no one ever saw bruises on you or cuts or seeing you go emotionally upset or anything of that sort because of of your domestic situation, right?
Right.
Okay. So it can go either way. It can go with a
Right.
pattern, or it can go with just like yours.
Yes.
Just out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
All right. Now tell us the message on how you can help people who are I guess victims in a sense of domestic violence.
First, you will have to notice the signs, because the abuser, first of all, the abuser cannot love. That is a proven fact, that the abuser, whether it's man or woman, cannot love. Signs such as,
think they love you.
you think that they love you, but in actuality, they cannot love.
Okay. So once again, the signs are?
Manipulation and control.
Okay.
It's either going to be his or her way or no way. A second sign, like in my case, was threats after he had married me. And when someone threatens you, they mean exactly what they say. They are going to carry that threat out. But what is going to happen is going to be unexpectedly.
Okay. Now, in your situation, you were verbally, you had verbal threats against you, so it wasn't physical. It was verbal abuse for quite a while, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it started to be physical abuse. I remember I disagreed with something that he said one day, and I found myself knocked to the floor. From that day forward, I knew not to disagree with nothing he said or nothing that he did.
Okay.
Isolation is another sign that the abuser uses.
Was he try to keep you away, or she try to keep you away from friends and family?
Yes.
Okay.
False accusations, that's another sign.
Okay. Blaming you for things that you may or may not be doing, right?
Exactly.
Well, false would be you're not doing them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Jealousy, which is as cruel as the grave.
Mm-hmm. Is jealousy a sign of insecurity?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. It is. Another sign, like we just mentioned, verbal abuse. And sometimes what they would say is, see what you made me do? If they hit you and they, see what you made me do, they blame the fault on you. They said, not on themselves.
Right.
Because they have to always be in control. See what you made me do.
Right. Even if they do something that, would be seen not right, it's your fault.
Right.
For bringing that out of them, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you wasn't the way you were, I wouldn't be like the way I am, is basically what they're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. And another one is silence. I know silence is therapeutic, but sometimes the abuser uses silence to manipulate and control. Because what the victim does in that case is say, what have I done? I mean, why isn't he or she talking to me? So it's another way to manipulate and control the victim.
Okay.
It is deceptive. And it's very cunning.
Okay. We've got Joyce in here this morning talking about domestic violence. As you just heard, she's been in a domestic situation where she was physically abused and then finally shot with a .357 Magnum 3 times. How many years ago was that, Joyce?
That was 35 years ago.
35 years. Okay.
And I've had 37 facial reconstructive surgeries.
Now, was all 3 in the face or body, and what happened to hit the face or what?
Okay. The first bullet shot me in the face. It tore half of my face off, including my nose, my eye, my lower lid, my cheekbone, my tear duct, the infraoperative nerve.
Okay.
I lost the eye, sinuses. The second bullet hit the nerve in the left arm. And it just appeared just like on a fictitious movie. It seemed like the arm just drew up and stretched back out.
Right.
And I was trying to get away, and he was right behind me. And he reminded me again, didn't I tell you I was going to kill you?
Okay. And where'd the third bullet hit?
The third bullet hit me in the rib. It collapsed the rib.
Since we have more guests and we have to move along here, but how did you go from being shot 3 times with your face half ripped off and your arm and your body to getting medical help? How did that happen?
Okay, somehow I started to vomit coffee ground material. And since I was a registered nurse, I knew that meant that I had been shot in my lung. And I had to get back from the living room into the kitchen where he first shot me and sat in an upright position. So when I was getting weak and blood was coming from me from everywhere. Yes. And when I sat up and I dropped my head, and that's when he called the police.
So he called the police.
Called the police.
So did he have a moment of guilt there, or did he sense a responsibility, or was he just thinking this is a situation where it was your fault, now he's going to call the police to get you taken care of? Is that I'm trying to understand his thought process and what you think his thought process was.
I think he thought that I was dead. Because what happened was I found out, evidently he thought that I was dead, and went back over there to where I was sitting and saw that I was still breathing and tried to shoot me the 4th time, and the bullet locked in the chamber of the gun.
Wow. Somebody looking out for you in that situation.
That's right. That's right.
It's interesting that he would call the police like that. Is basically he's turning himself in. If he's calling the police like that. So that's your situation right there. A lot of folks have been through domestic violence, men and women, children, and all that. And so you mentioned the signs to look for if you're in a relationship that could lead to domestic violence. What are the solutions to it, and how can people get help?
Well, I always tell people, you can always call 911 now if you can.
Right.
So, but I always tell people there's a 1-800 number, the National Domestic Abuse Hotline, and that number is 1-800-799-7233, and they will lead you to a shelter.
Okay.
And the priority is to get somewhere that's safe.
Okay.
Because if you have children, I had a 2 and a 4-year-old who witnessed that shooting, and it had a great impact on their lives also.
Now, you were shot 35 years ago. I'm sure that relationship ended at that time. Is that right?
4 months later, we were divorced.
Okay, 4 months later, divorced, and that's 35 years ago. How long did it take you before you got to the point where you wrote books, did a speaking to folks who have been the victims of domestic violence? You've, like I said, you spoke to this women's a Tri-County Protective Agency host breakfast to benefit women's shelter, and speak to different organizations about domestic violence. How long did it take for you got to that point?
Well, even when I was under facial reconstruction, I always participated in domestic violence prevention programs, awareness like that the shelter presented. And it's been going on. I started maybe about 7 years after I had gotten shot, because in the 1990s I started participating in those domestic violence awareness programs that were done in the civilian and the military sectors.
Now, were you in the military at the time, or was your partner at the time, husband, in the military?
Both of us were in the military. I was an officer, and yes.
Okay. And so, did you ever go back to being a nurse after that?
I tried to nurse, but what happened was I was medically retired.
Okay. Now, you're a victim like that, a survivor. Also, you've healed mostly physically, but what about the mental aspect of domestic violence? What does that do to people, and how can they overcome that? Because scars can heal a lot easier than the brain can sometimes.
Well, in our case, it took a lot of counseling. Counseling is very important in domestic violence situations, but also I believed in God, and and what I learned during the counseling through the military and civilian sectors, and my belief in God, is that I had to put the past behind. In order for me to go forward, I had to put the past behind and look towards the possibility of what I can do in the future, because I had future goals and ambitions. And I would like to tell those victims of domestic violence is that you're not alone. That's what I learned, that you are not alone out here, because there are resources to help you get past of the circumstance of being abused and become a survivor.
Now, what happened with your children after that? And, are they all fine now? What's going on with that situation? Because, you said you had 2 kids when you were shot.
Well, both of them, like I said, we went through counseling, and both they have degrees now. They are coping pretty well. Okay.
We've got just a couple of more minutes here, and so tell us what you would like for folks to know from you who are in a domestic violence situation. Maybe they think they are, maybe they are. What should they be doing, and how can they get help if they figure that, this is just not going to change?
I think they should be focused on safety. Safety is imperative. Get out of the situation, please, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. The longer you stay, the worse it's going to get. And a lot of reasons why victims do not leave out of an abusive situation is because of fear. It's because they feel as though they are at fault.
They're somewhat responsible.
Yeah, they are responsible in their mind. It's a mental, emotional thing there. Mm-hmm. They feel as though that person will change. Well, the abuser is not going to change, because he or she cannot love, and they strike unexpectedly, so you can't change them. So I advise anyone who's in a domestic violence circumstance to please seek safety. The shelters are out there. The 1-800 domestic violence hotline is out there.
Okay.
And 911 is available if you can get to that 911.
Yeah, most policemen will tell you they'd rather go into a criminal situation than they would a domestic violence situation, because it could be a lot worse when they go into a home where you've got partners yelling at each other, threatening each other and stuff like that, or one doing it and the other one trying to. I guess that's the reason why they passed a law many years ago in the state of Georgia, the domestic violence law, where if the partner, a lot of times in these situations, the partner does not want to press charges out of fear or whatever the case may be, and they gave the authority to the policeman to say, they'll look at the situation and say, all right, we are going to make an arrest even though you're not going to press charges. And I think you think that's helped a lot of folks? That law where the policeman can actually arrest somebody even though the partner does not want to press charges because of fear?
I think so.
Okay.
I really do. I like that. And I think that's a great move. Just go on and arrest. And sometimes what they do, they have arrested the victim and also the abuser. They've done that too. So
we don't know who's telling the truth. So we're going to let the other folks. We're going to arrest and let the prosecutors make a decision on that, or the grand jury.
Yes.
All right, we got Joyce in here. She is from Wayne County. She's written 2 books on domestic violence, and this book here that's got all these great poems and quotes and Bible verses in it. It's called From the Pen of a Ready Writer. Okay, and the pen name she used on that is Rebecca Grace Stone, and then she's also written another book called Ripped to Shreds, a true story of domestic abuse in a small town, and the pen name on that is Ann Wilson. And where can they purchase these books or read about these books?
They're on Amazon and also Barnes & Nobles and also iUniverse.
Okay, all right. In this last minute here, what final message would you like to get across to people who may be in a domestic violence situation?
The final message I would like to say is this: domestic violence is real, and domestic violence kills. Please get out. Okay.
Joyce, has been very interesting. It's been a pleasure having you in here this morning. It's an issue that it affects every community, from a small town to a large town. There's no economic lines in it. Anybody, for people who make 6-figure incomes to low incomes, goes across all ethnic backgrounds. It's not discriminatory in any type of way when it comes to domestic violence.
That's correct.
Okay, and perhaps maybe we can have you back on again, Joyce, in the next couple of months, so when we have more time to go into more depth.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure having you on the world famous Butch and Bob Show.
Thank you very much.
All right. WIFO 105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio. We'll be back with more of the world famous Butch and Bob Show in a moment. We got more guests out in the green room.
Congratulations to the Wayne County High School class of 2019. The following businesses, individuals, and organizations salute you and wish you good fortune in the years to come. Calvary Baptist Church salutes Micah Copeland, Coastal Plains, Ashby Cribb, Alyssa DeLoach, Shaylin Duncan, Micah Feltman, Gordon Jameson, Dusty Holland, Chloe Johnson, Cooper Martin, Barrett Miller, Bryce Miller, Claire Miller, Maggie Miller, Hamp Perkins, Ayanna Turner, Spencer Turner, Courtney Williams, and Heather Yoder homeschooled. First Baptist Church salutes Andrew Aspinwall, Griffin Boykin, Jeremy Henderson homeschooled, and Chloe Lyons. Jones Kitchen salutes Ty Hunter Anderson, Victor Ortega Andrews Jr., and Reina Angelina Arano.
105.5 FM in Jesup, Big Dog Country Radio, WIFO. World famous Butch and Bob Show here on this Wednesday morning. It is the 22nd day of May. And Bob, we've got more guests in this morning.
Yeah, I got a couple of coaches from Wayne County. They're taking a mission trip going to Brazil, and got Mike Ward and his wife, Katie Ward, who runs the cheerleading program at Wayne County High School. Coach Ward's the defense coordinator, but I wanted to get them to come in and talk about how this came about and tell us where you're headed and what all's going to take place. So who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
I'll talk.
Introduce yourself when you come on there.
All right, I'm Michael Ward. Like Bob said, I'm defensive coordinator, head track coach at Wayne County High School. Who are you?
When she talks, I'll get her to introduce herself. Because people tune in and out, and so we like to mention names over several times. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we're headed to Curitiba, Brazil, and it came about a guy named Donnie Arrington. He's a legendary basketball coach in the state of Georgia. He's been at Toombs, Effingham, and Jeff Davis. He was looking for a husband and wife duo, one that coaches football and a wife that coaches cheerleading. He retired from coaching, got into FCA, and he's doing mission trips now. And so he thought of me and Katie. He asked us. He got me by saying, "Hey, you want to go on a trip to Brazil this summer?" Heck yeah! And he started explaining what we were doing. Brazil was starting.
The details. He told you the details. Okay.
Brazil was starting American football, and he wanted to get a couple coaches from the state of Georgia to go down there and coach football. And they also need cheerleading. Okay. So Katie's going to go help with the cheerleading part.
All right. Introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Katie Ward. Like my better half said, I coach.
No. You're the better
half. I'm the better half.
You're the better
okay.
half.
I mean, I wasn't going to.
I'm sure he agrees with it.
I wasn't going to say it. You know, I'm practicing humility here, so I wasn't going to say it. But hey, I'll agree with it.
So you're the cheerleading coach at Wayne County High School, right?
I am, absolutely. Coach Arrington, as Michael mentioned, you know, kind of sought us out, and we had the opportunity to work with him, to coach with him at Effingham, and I taught his son, and so, you know, we've just had a relationship with him for a number of years, and so he reached out to us and, you know, kind of just presented this to us, and I mean, it kind of went from there. It kind of snowballed from that point on.
Okay. Now, are y'all active in the church that y'all attend, or how did you come across this mission? I mean, I know you got the mission trip, but y'all very active in the church that you attend?
Well, he works closely. I mean, he's part of the state FCA
So
program.
A lot of this has to do with the FCA.
Absolutely.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes who just have their banquet. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
So this is what this comes through, is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
So every year, the state FCA, you know, puts together a committee or puts together a group of coaches, and they'll kind of cycle on throughout the summer. So after we leave, there'll be another group that goes back for, you know, basketball, and then there'll be another group that goes back for baseball. You know, they cycle on and off throughout the summer, and these are comprised of coaches from across the state of Georgia, and some schools or some coaches that have been, you know, years on end now, they've actually started taking students with them as well. So they go over there, you know, to coach, but then they also have student volunteers that go and like really hands-on help, you know, with the coaching and with the ministry and
what
all
town is this again, or city in Brazil?
Curitiba.
And where in Brazil is that?
Southeast region.
Because we all know the Rio de Janeiro.
Right.
How does it compare to it? Up the coast, down the coast, inland?
It's southeast of it. It's I guess on the eastern coast of it.
Okay. Well, Bob, go back ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it was just interesting.
No, just when do y'all head and what all you plan to do?
A week from today, we're flying out, going to Orlando. We're going to stay 7 days. Haven't seen an itinerary, but I know we're going to be giving testimonies and just coaching football. And football in Brazil is totally different than America. They have club. They don't have high school football. They don't have college football.
It's just clubs.
Clubs, and it can be any age. I heard a story of a 40-year-old father on the same team as a 17-year-old son. So that.
Now, how does that work? I mean, you can't have a 17 and 4-year-old
unbelievable.
player.
Could you imagine playing with a 17-year-old?
No,
that's crazy.
No. But do they play the similar rules they hear?
Same rules, same
helmets,
American
pads,
football,
all that kind of stuff like that. Is that a growing sport down there in Brazil?
It is growing. It's the third largest sport. Soccer's number one. MMA is number two. They got the Gracie brothers are from Brazil, and American football is number 3 right now.
Have you been brushing up on your pork cheese?
I have not. I need to.
No,
get you an app on your smartphone now.
That's right.
Well, we will have a translator that goes and that, you know, like does this all the time. So that's that's reassuring, I guess, that we have somebody that, does speak the language and that can do the translation
Right.
because that is going to be difficult.
Are you going to be teaching cheerleading while you're there?
I will. And the thing that the coach
Regular
Arrington,
cheerleading or competitive cheerleading?
right now it's sideline.
Sideline.
Just because they don't have, like he was saying, they have this club program, and what they want to do is they've seen all of the movies and they've seen all the things that cheer is in America, and they want to have that kind of program instilled, there to kind of support their athletic teams as well. So they see how it works here, and they really don't know. I mean, there are some competitive programs in gyms and things like that, all-star programs, but that's very, very different from, the sideline aspects.
Right. So you're going to be teaching some football. You're going to be teaching some cheerleading.
Right.
But a lot of the trip is going to be giving testimony.
Absolutely.
Because this is a mission trip, correct?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Now, what will you be doing on that end?
As far as the mission work is concerned, there's definitely a need for testimony. There's definitely a need for sharing, your experiences, your faith, your ideals, your beliefs. And I think that's probably one of the most rewarding experiences, just in preparation for this trip,
Okay.
because not only are you able to do what you're passionate about as far as your career and your professional life is concerned, but on a more personal level, you're able to really witness and share your testimony and share your story with people who ordinarily wouldn't have any access to this information and wouldn't have any kind of influence whatsoever. So to be able to share that with people and just to spread the word of God is going to be, to me, the most rewarding part of this entire trip.
Okay. Y'all going with a group of people?
We're going with a group of coaches, right?
A group of coaches. Are they any from this area or is it throughout the nation?
The head coach from Toombs County is going to be there. Mark Stroud from Calvary. He was the head coach at Swainsboro. He's going. And Mark Stroud's assistant at Calvary. He'll be going too.
Okay.
From what we understand, it's just Georgia coaches.
Okay.
Because it's the Georgia chapter of FCA.
Okay. Now, is this a town on the beach?
It's
Is
not
it on the coast? It's inland a little bit?
Yeah, little inland.
Okay. Bob, go ahead.
Just when you get them back, hopefully we can get you to tell us about your experience. So
Yeah.
just want people to let you know that they're going.
Right.
I thought it was an interesting story.
Oh, yeah.
Two coaches, husband and wife, going to Brazil for a missionary trip. So I thought, it should be fun.
Yeah.
You said you get back on your anniversary.
That's right, June 5th.
How many years? Look at them looking at each other. My word.
It's been so fun. It's flown by.
Oh, it's
We
been
don't
so
know.
fun. It's just flown right away.
What
That
year
was
is it?
priceless.
16.
I'm glad that we had this video. Y'all can go back on BigDogCountry.com today around noon and look at this.
Right.
And y'all
Got us
staring
off
at
guard.
each other.
That's
16
right.
years.
16.
Yeah, you get to a certain point where you're not on the 5th or 10th or 15th, and you got to
Right.
think something. Where it's the 16th, 17th,
Right.
you know.
I don't even know how old I am.
I know. I really do always have to, what
Think
year is
about
it?
it.
And think about it. You just, I don't know, after a while you stop counting and, it's just like-
29.
yeah, it's just whatever from this point on. Whatever.
Yeah. We wish y'all the best. A
Thank you so
safe
much.
trip down there, Bob.
I just said appreciate y'all coming in. I said wish you all the best.
Absolutely.
And we'd love to have you back on. Hopefully, Bob can line this up when y'all get back in a week to get back on just as soon as you can. And so you leave when?
Wednesday, a week from today.
And then you back the next Tuesday or Wednesday?
The next Wednesday.
The next Wednesday.
June the 5th is when we
Okay.
come back.
Let's see if you can line them up for Thursday or Friday that week, Bob.
Look it up.
And we need to have them back on because, we've got people, we tell folks that you're going. Now they
Right.
want to
They
hear
wanna
the
know
story.
what it- right,
Yeah, they
right.
want to hear the story. So let's line you up on that Thursday, Friday. We can line you up on Friday then because I know Thursday you'll be wore out.
Probably. And we just appreciate everybody's, prayers and positive thoughts. I mean, all of that. This is something totally new to us, and we hope to be able to do it again and to be one of those coaches that goes year after year, and hopefully eventually get to the point where we can take some of our student athletes with us, because I think that's just even better. I mean, just an incredible part.
How's the financial situation of this taken care of?
Donations.
Donations, okay. All right.
Speaking of which, we actually still have an opportunity to generate some funds if anyone is interested. And it's the thing that I think is most important to understand is it's not just for our trip. I mean, there's a link that we can give you to help raise money for just our trip. But what this group does is they will generate funds for the entire group that's going throughout the summer. So even if, our trip is covered, there's always another group that's going to go, next month, and then
Right.
after that. So it's not just about, helping us. It's about helping these coaches from across the state that are going to go and be a presence in Brazil, and especially, being able to witness and to minister to these people that, again, don't have access and don't have that information.
Is Christianity the main religion in Brazil?
I think so. There's a huge European influence, and Catholicism is
Big down there.
right.
Yeah. So y'all leave Wednesday, come back the following Wednesday. We wish y'all the best down there, a safe trip. Hopefully your testimonies will touch some folks.
Thank you.
And then I'm sure that the young folks down there will enjoy being taught by you, Coach, and cheerleading. I'm sure the girls will love that down there.
We hope so.
So,
You hope so?
That's right.
Anything else, Bob?
Appreciate
That
you
it?
coming in.
All right. Anything else that y'all want people to know about before you go? And this is through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes that organizes and puts this
Right.
together each year, right?
That's right.
That's
All
right.
right.
That's right.
Safe travels.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Right.
Thank you for having us today.
All right, world famous Butch and Bob Show brought to you by Murphy Builder Supply on Northeast Broad Street in downtown Jesup, and by the Women's Health Center in downtown Jesup on Chariot Broad, Wolf Animal Hospital on West Cherry Street, and by Mike Birch Ford in Blank
The
City.
world famous Butch and Bob Show.